Hey Stats fans, I'm Ryan Griffin.
I'm Vaughn Thacker.
I'm Daniel Andreo.
And we are
The
Stats Cats.
Let's jump right into our little project right here. How do SAT and ACT scores predict success at West Point? To start off, before we ever analyze the data, we had to deduce that it wasn't just ACT and SAT scores that can predict college success. We understand this, but our research question is going to focus specifically on the influence of SAT and ACT scores and how they can predict success, specifically here at West Point. Here at the table below, we separate all the variables from data that we can record, CQPAs, the response to all these explanatory variables, the various scores from the SAT and the ACT, all of which are quantitative. Since there are no units assigned, it's only points. For instance, SAT, ACT, there's no unit assigned to the points. There are no units applicable here. For the data, we compiled the average score of every possible score from each test, as well as the average CQPA. And over here, we have a plus or minus of the standard deviation. That way, we know the averages and where this sort of range falls in. For our methods, we took the data given by us, or to us rather, by the Department of Mathematical Sciences here at the United States Military Academy and made 9 different scatter plots. From that, we made 12 linear regressions separating every ACT and SAT score and how it predicts CQPA here at West Point. From there, we used the linear regression model to test the following hypotheses, all of which are listed here below. We have null and alternative hypothesis for every possible ACT and SAT score and how it may or may not associate with CQPA here at West Point.
Alright, so we then took the data that was given to us and we started compiling scatter plots. Now with most of these, they generally congregate in a positive correlation where the higher the score for each section, you typically see a higher CQPA. So figure 1 is the ACT composition score. Figure 2, you see your ACT English score. Figure 3 is your ACT math score. Figure 4 is your ACT reading. And then figure 5, ACT science and reasoning versus CQPA. And then figure 6 is the ACT writing score versus CQPA. Now you'll notice something unusual in this graph in that there are some scores that are scored as 0 and they still have an associated CQPA. Since the ACT writing is optional, what this means is that there were cadets that sat for the ACT test with writing that simply chose not to do their essay. And that's what's reflected in the graph when you see scores that congregate around 0. Moving on, we start going into the SAT sections, so SAT math score versus CQPA. And then with most of these, you're also going to see a general positive trend where the higher the score is, you typically see a higher mean in the CQPA. So that's your SAT math, and that's your SAT verbal, SAT writing. And then here we have the histogram of our error. That's just inherent in the data. And then moving on, we have our residual plot. As you can see, centers around 0. I'll turn things over to Ryan to take you the rest of the way.
Exactly. So this right here shows our validity conditions, and you see again from our histogram, it is mainly a bell curve centered pretty close to round 3. That means that validity condition it passes. This residual plot, it's centered around 0. That validity condition is good, so we are good to go. And now we get into our models and what we found. And so when we looked at each explanatory variable compared to CQPA, we would found that they did have a statistically significant p-value. However, that is something that doesn't surprise us because we're only looking at one variable to our results of CQPA. Obviously, there's going to have some sort of significant p-value there because it's only one explanatory variable and response variable. The important linear regression model to look at is the one that combines all of our explanatory variables to see if any of them are actually statistically significant and see if they contribute to CQPA. And as you can see in the p-value column, none of these explanatory variables do have a statistically significant p-value, showing that there is not enough strength to say in these results to say that any of these variables have any sort of effect on CQPA. So we cannot reject the null hypothesis of saying that ACT and SAT scores don't affect CQPA. Just again, showing our validity conditions, and here is our ended up being our regression model to predict CQPA, and you'll notice that these are extremely small coefficients, and you have to remember that this is because CQPA is a very small number. It's usually between 2 and 4. Meanwhile, ACT can go all the way up to 36, and SAT can go up all the way to 800. So you have to have those extremely small coefficients in order to get a line of best fit. And so our conclusions from this, our main takeaway, we can't really say that ACT and SAT predict success at West Point. And so why does this matter? What makes our study unique compared to other studies? And this is because no other study really focuses on specific sections of the standardized test. In our literature review, what we saw was that they just focused on the SAT as a whole, and they didn't really focus on the ACT, even though both tests are weighted the same. And then so some limitation of our studies is our data set only included USMA cadets, which means that's a convenient sample and really can't be generalized to students at other academies or institutions. And then also another limitation is that going forward, our CQPA is made up of military and physical GPA as well, so that is also a limitation, but something that we would also want to study in the future is how does it affect academic GPA rather than CQPA as a whole. Thank you for listening, Stats fans. Hope you enjoy our presentation.